President Trump stood in the Oval Office defending FBI Director Kash Patel. He said that the FBI had done a very good job. And that was a quote, by the way. He also said that, these cases are very difficult, and he said that the Brown University shooting was really a school problem. Basically not an FBI failure that a gunman got away.
Has Kash Patel told you why it's been so difficult for the FBI to identify who the shooter is?
Well, it's always difficult. So far, we've done a very good job of doing it with Charlie, with the various times this has happened. They've done it in pretty much record time. But you really have to ask the school a little bit more about that, because this was a school problem. They had their own guards, they had their own police, they had their own everything, but you'd have to ask that question really to the school, not to the FBI. We came in after the fact, and the FBI will do a good job, but they came in after the fact.
So that statement came one day after the FBI publicly announced that it had identified a person of interest in the mass shooting in Providence, Rhode Island. 2 people were killed, 9 others were injured. I think 1 is still in critical condition. By Sunday night, Rhode Island's Attorney General Peter Neronha said that the evidence had changed. The man the FBI had highlighted, a 24-year-old from Wisconsin, was released. State and local authorities made clear he was, no longer a suspect. Despite that, President Trump shifted blame away from the FBI. He said that the university had its own police, its own guards, its own security. He said that the FBI came in after the fact, which, by the way, it always does. It's always state, local, private, or actually probably goes private most of the time. Local, state, and then FBI. And FBI usually takes over cases like this, and they are responsible. But in this case, to make Kash Patel, who was doing a podcast, by the way, with Stephen Miller's wife during this manhunt, we got to make him look good. Kash Patel's got to look good, right? So we'll blame it on Brown University. But that's not how these cases ever work. Okay, in major mass shootings, the FBI does not sit on the sidelines. It works with the local campus police and with the local police outside the campus. It sets up a command post, basically, and, stays on scene for sometimes days, if not longer, analyzing leads and, evidence. That is how the FBI works. And in fact, Director Patel himself said that the FBI had established a command post and was running leads around the clock. That does not sound like a background role to me. That does not sound like, Brown's problem. Sounds like you're doing something, or at least alluding that you're doing something. The problem is not that investigations are hard, because they are. I'm sure they're extremely hard. The problem is announcing results before they are confirmed. This is also not the first time. After the killing of conservative activist Charlie Kirk, Director Patel posted that a suspect was in custody. That claim was walked back within hours. So even sources inside the White House have said that these public statements were unprofessional. Not because, mistakes never happen. Obviously they do. But because public errors cost trust and possibly lives. And when the FBI speaks, communities in fear listen. The president can, defend his appointee. That is his right, of course. But defense does not change facts. Facts show a pattern of premature announcements followed by a quiet walkback. In fact, I don't know why I'm saying quiet. This is not quiet. They are doing this stuff on national TV. In cases like this, the public does not need spin. It needs care, accuracy, and it needs leadership who waits for facts before making promises. You can't blame a institution like Brown University or, put the responsibility of a nationwide manhunt on Brown University police and security. That is the job of your FBI, Mr. Trump. That is the job of your FBI. Their job is to hold down the fort until you arrive. Once you arrive, you set up your post, you take control, you run the show. Anything that happens after that point, you are responsible for. Thank you for watching. I am Jared Zisser, and this is Ring of Fire. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and turn on notifications to make sure you are informed about everything important in progressive politics today. And if you are looking for fact-based independent reporting all day, every day, follow me here on Instagram or here on Facebook. See you in the next video.